Lily had always known that she was meant to work with animals. Since she was a little girl, she had dreamed of being close to them, understanding their behavior, and helping them in any way she could. Now, at 25 years old, after years of studying zoology and animal behavior, she had finally found herself in the perfect job, volunteering at a large, well-known zoo. However, this was not just any zoo. It was a sanctuary for endangered species. A place where animals that had suffered from poaching or other forms of trauma could find refuge and care. One animal in particular had caught her attention, the gorilla named Gore. Lily had heard about him long before she started her volunteer position. Gore was only 12 years old, yet his past was filled with unimaginable hardships. He had been a victim of poaching at a young age, severely injured during the brutal attack, and brought to the zoo in critical condition. Although his wounds had healed over time, the emotional scars remained, and Gore was a different gorilla altogether. He was wild, mistrustful of humans, and extremely difficult to approach. The zookeepers told her stories of how Gore had attacked anyone who came too close to his enclosure, and they had to take special precautions when feeding or caring for him. Lily had read everything she could about gorillas, particularly their complex emotional intelligence. She had learned that, like humans, gorillas were capable of forming deep bonds and relationships. She knew that, with time, patience, and kindness, Gore could learn to trust again, and she was determined to be the one to help him do so. But it wasn't going to be easy. Gore's past had left him wary of all humans, and his pain and fear had shaped his behavior. On her first day volunteering, Lily was assigned to help care for Gore. She had heard the stories, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of seeing him in person. The first time she approached his enclosure, Lily felt her heart race. There he was, massive, with a deep brown coat and a powerful build, sitting in the far corner of his space. He was staring into the distance, seemingly lost in thought, his eyes hard and cold, as if he could sense her presence and was immediately suspicious. His gaze never wavered, and Lily could see that he was alert, watching every movement she made. Her hands trembled slightly, but she remained calm, determined to make a good first impression. Lily's task was to provide Gore with his lunch, but she had been warned that he didn't take food from humans willingly. She understood that this first encounter was crucial. It was not just about the food. It was about building the foundation of trust. If she rushed it, if she made any sudden movements, she could make things worse. She crouched down near the edge of his enclosure, her eyes soft and inviting, trying to show Gore that she meant no harm. Her heart was in her throat, but she forced herself to keep her voice steady as she spoke to him. "Hey, Gore," she said gently, almost whispering as if to soothe him. "I know you've been through a lot, but I'm here to help you. I'm not going to hurt you." Gore didn't respond at first. His eyes flickered to her, then quickly moved back to the wall of his enclosure. His body tensed, but he didn't approach. Lily sighed, her heart sinking slightly. She knew it was going to take time, but this moment was a small step, and she would need to be patient. Lily placed the food, some fresh fruits, leafy greens, and a bit of nuts, at the far side of the enclosure. She didn't want to pressure him, so she slowly backed away, giving him space to approach it on his own terms. The food was important, but the trust was more important. She had to give him the control in this situation. She had to let him come to her, not the other way around. For the next few days, Lily continued her routine of sitting quietly by the enclosure, offering food and speaking softly to Gore. She never rushed or demanded anything from him. She would tell him about her day, her experiences, and sometimes, she would sit in silence, hoping that the steady rhythm of her presence would eventually convince him she was not a threat. At times, Gore would watch her with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. His eyes would follow her every movement, and when she approached, he would retreat to the back of his enclosure, keeping his distance. But Lily noticed something else too. There were moments, however brief, when Gore's eyes softened, when the tension in his body eased, and when he would glance at the food she had left for him. He wasn't ready to take it, But he wasn't as hostile either. On the fourth day, something unexpected happened. Lily arrived at the zoo in the morning, a bit tired from the previous day's work. As she approached Gore's enclosure, she saw him standing near the food. He hadn't touched it yet, but he was closer than before. Lily's heart raced. She knew this was a pivotal moment. If she made the wrong move, if she startled him, he could retreat back into his shell. But if she was patient enough, if she just let the moment unfold, this could be the breakthrough they both needed. Slowly, she crouched down again and spoke in the same soothing tone. "It's okay, Gore, you don't have to take it if you're not ready. I'm not going anywhere." For the first time, Gore made a subtle movement. He took a few steps forward. Slowly, cautiously, his large, muscular frame moved with grace. Despite the evident wariness, he stopped just short of the food and stared at it for a long time. Lily held her breath, her pulse quickening. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Gore reached forward, his large fingers brushing the fruit. He took a piece, holding it in his hand as if testing it. Lily's heart soared. This wasn't just about food. It was the first real sign that he was willing to trust her, that he was starting to accept her presence. Over the following weeks, their bond grew. Every day, Lily would visit him, always keeping her distance, always speaking softly and calmly. She learned to recognize his moods, when he was open to interaction and when he needed space. She never pushed him, and in turn, Gore began to show signs of trust. He would take food from her hand, even allow her to stay in the same area while he ate. Slowly, he began to approach her more frequently, and the days when he would look at her with that hard, mistrustful gaze became fewer and farther between. One afternoon, as Lily sat by his enclosure, Gore walked up to her, sitting just a few feet away. This time, instead of retreating, he simply sat there, his eyes watching her quietly. It wasn't the same distant gaze he had once had. It was a gaze that held curiosity and, perhaps, even some affection. Lily smiled softly to herself. "I believe," she whispered, almost to herself, "with enough love and care, I can earn his trust." And for the first time, she believed it was possible. She wasn't just taking care of a wild animal, she was building a connection. A relationship based on mutual understanding and respect. And while the road ahead would not always be easy, Lily knew one thing for certain: Gore had already started his journey of healing. And so had she. As the days turned into weeks, Lily found herself becoming more and more invested in her role with Gore. Initially, it was simply about doing her job. She was there to provide him with food, water, and the basic care he needed. But, as time passed, she began to realize that it was about something much more profound. It wasn't just about meeting his physical needs. It was about helping him heal emotionally and rebuilding his trust in humans. Every day, Lily would wake up early, filled with a sense of purpose. She was determined to build a connection with Gore, despite his previous experiences that had caused him to be wary of everyone. The first few days had been difficult, as Gore had remained distant, often retreating to the back of his enclosure whenever she approached. He hadn't been aggressive, but there was no doubt that he was watching her closely, measuring her every move, as if waiting for her to do something that would betray his trust. And so, Lily had taken her time, slowly, patiently. She had allowed him to come to her on his own terms. Over time, Lily noticed subtle changes in Gore. He no longer retreated to the farthest corner of his space when she approached. Instead, he would watch her from a distance, his gaze less guarded, as if he were contemplating whether to trust her. She continued to speak to him softly, using the same calm voice she had used on their first day together. She didn't force him to engage, nor did she expect anything from him. She simply offered him food and stayed present, allowing him to choose when he felt ready to interact. One afternoon, Lily arrived at the zoo to find Gore sitting near the edge of his enclosure, gazing out at the trees. It was a warm, sunny day, and the air was thick with the scent of fresh grass and earth. The usual sounds of the zoo echoed in the background, children laughing, the chatter of other animals, but Gore seemed lost in his thoughts. Lily smiled gently as she approached him, setting the food down at the usual spot. She didn't say anything at first. She simply stood there, allowing him to notice her presence. Gore, as always, was cautious, but this time, he didn't turn away. Instead, he slowly got up and approached the food. He took a moment to examine it, sniffing the fruits and vegetables as though he were deciding whether to accept them or not. Finally, he reached out with one of his massive hands and carefully picked up a piece of fruit. Lily felt a wave of relief. This was the first time he had approached the food without hesitation. Without the usual wariness. It was a small step. But it was a step forward. Day by day, their interactions began to evolve. Lily continued to show up at the same time every day, always bringing Gore fresh food, and always speaking to him gently. She began to talk to him more, telling him about her day, asking about his. She even started to sing to him, a quiet, soothing melody she had often sung to herself during stressful moments. The sound of her voice seemed to calm him, and she noticed that when she sang, Gore would stop what he was doing and listen, his eyes softening. There was something almost magical about those moments. Despite the language barrier between them, despite the differences in their worlds, music seemed to reach him in a way that words alone could not. As the weeks passed, Lily noticed more signs that Gore was beginning to trust her. He would follow her movements with his eyes, and occasionally, he would even approach her, sitting just a few feet away. On some days, he would stretch out a hand toward her, his massive fingers gently brushing the ground near her. It wasn't an invitation for physical contact, but it was a clear sign that he was beginning to feel more comfortable in her presence. Lily felt her heart swell each time he did this. It was as if he were testing the waters, seeing if she would respond in a way that showed him she could be trusted. She always responded in the same way, slowly, carefully, with respect for his space. She never pushed for more than he was willing to give. And each time, she could see his hesitation slowly fade, replaced by a quiet curiosity. One afternoon, as Lily sat by the edge of his enclosure, Gore walked up to her. She had just finished cleaning the area, and was resting on a small bench near the fence. At first, she didn't notice him approaching, but when she looked up, she was surprised to see him standing only a few feet away. Watching her closely, he was no longer the tense, cautious gorilla she had met on her first day. He seemed relaxed, his posture more open. "Gore," Lily said softly, her voice filled with a quiet wonder. "Are you coming closer?" To her amazement, Gore took another step forward, lowering his head slightly as he sat down beside her. It wasn't exactly the kind of interaction she had been hoping for. There were no hugs, no playful gestures, but it was a breakthrough. For the first time, Gore had chosen to sit near her, not out of necessity, but out of his own volition. Lily sat there in silence, savoring the moment. She had never felt so connected to him. In that brief, shared space, it was clear that Gore was no longer just the wild, fearful animal who had been wary of human contact. He had begun to view her differently, not as a threat, but as someone who genuinely cared for him. She knew that their bond was still fragile, still in its early stages, but it was growing stronger with each passing day. "Gore," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm not just your caretaker. I'm your friend too." And as she spoke those words, something shifted in the air between them. It was as if a silent agreement had been made, a mutual understanding. Gore didn't respond verbally, but he tilted his head slightly, his eyes softening as he looked at her. It was as if he understood. He didn't need words to know that she cared for him, that she was there not just to look after him, but to walk beside him through his healing process. From that day on, their relationship continued to evolve. There were still moments of uncertainty, of fear, but the more time they spent together, the more Gore began to show signs of affection. He would reach out to gently touch her arm or allow her to sit closer to him without pulling away. He would even nudge her hand with his head as if asking for attention, a sign that he had come to trust her in ways he hadn't trusted anyone else before. For Lily, each of these moments felt like a gift. She had always believed that love, patience, and care could heal even the deepest wounds. With Gore, She was learning that it was not only about healing the body but also about healing the spirit. And as the days passed, she knew that their friendship was something truly special, a bond formed not just out of necessity, but out of a deep, shared understanding. Gore was no longer just an animal in her care. He had become her friend, and Lily had become his. It was a calm morning at the zoo. The sun had just started to rise, casting a soft golden glow over the enclosures. Lily had arrived early that day, eager to spend time with Gore, as she had been doing for the past several months. Their bond had grown stronger, and it was no longer just about food or care, it was about friendship, trust, and the understanding that they had become a crucial part of each other's lives. Lily's routine included spending time with Gore, talking to him, and just sitting by his enclosure. It was therapeutic for both of them, her as she listened to the soft sounds of nature around her, and him, as he gradually grew accustomed to her presence. Today, she had brought him his favorite fruits and a special treat, some fresh, ripe bananas and grapes. Gore, of course, had already been waiting for her, his eyes lighting up when he saw her approach. However, what began as an ordinary morning would soon turn into an unimaginable crisis. The zoo had many different sections, and while Gore's area was relatively safe, it was located near a few more dangerous enclosures, one of which housed a tiger. The tiger, named Raja, had been rescued from an abusive situation and was still a little unpredictable. He had been known to become agitated at times, especially when his space was disrupted. Lily didn't think anything of it at first. She had spent hours walking around the zoo with the other volunteers, checking in on different animals. She had walked past the tiger's enclosure a few times, and Raja had been calm each time. But that morning, something felt different. Lily had just finished giving Gore his food, and as she stood to leave, she lost her footing. There was a small section of uneven ground near the edge of Gore's enclosure, and before Lily could react, she found herself tumbling forward. The ground beneath her gave way, and she slipped, falling right through a gap in the barriers and into an area that was supposed to be off-limits. In an instant, Lily's heart raced. She had fallen into a space where several dangerous animals, including the tiger, roamed freely. Her instinct was to get up, to try and climb back to safety, but her legs were shaken, and her body was still adjusting to the shock of the fall. She tried to get her bearings, but panic set in as she realized just how precarious the situation was. Raja, the tiger, had been lounging nearby, but at the sound of her fall, he stirred, his ears perked up, and his eyes, once sleepy and indifferent, turned sharp and focused on Lily. Slowly, with an eerie grace, the tiger began to move toward her. Lily froze, her mind racing, but her body too terrified to move. The tiger's low growl reverberated through the space, sending a chill down her spine. "Please, Raja. Please don't," she whispered, barely able to find her voice. She backed away slowly, her heart hammering in her chest. She knew tigers were unpredictable and dangerous, but she didn't know how to escape. Her gaze flickered to the edge of the enclosure, where the other animals roamed freely. There was no way to climb back out of the pit, no way to reach safety, and she was alone. But as fear threatened to overtake her, something unexpected happened. From the other side of the zoo's barriers, Lily heard a loud, powerful sound. It was a deep, primal roar, one that shook the ground beneath her. It wasn't the tiger, it was Gore. In an instant, she turned her head to see Gore charging toward the gap in the barrier between their enclosures. Despite being wild and cautious by nature, Gore was not about to let Lily face danger alone. His eyes were wide with urgency, and there was no hesitation in his movement. Gore, who had once been terrified of humans and reluctant to trust anyone, now saw Lily in danger, and he knew what he had to do. With a surprising amount of strength, Gore used his powerful arms to push against the barrier. The barriers at the zoo, although strong, weren't designed to keep out a determined gorilla like him. With a grunt, Gore tore through the fence, ripping through the weak spots in the metal. The sound of cracking steel filled the air, and Gore leapt over the remnants of the barrier. landing just a few feet from Lily. Without thinking, Gore immediately positioned himself between her and Raja, his body wide and protective. He stood tall, his muscles rippling with strength, his stance firm and ready to defend. The tiger, initially moving toward Lily, hesitated at the sight of Gore. The massive gorilla stood his ground, facing the tiger with an intense, unyielding stare. Raja, for a moment, seemed to hesitate, but then he snarled and lunged forward, his powerful legs propelling him toward the two animals. It was a dangerous move, but Gore was ready. In an instant, Gore swung his arm with incredible force, swiping the tiger away, his massive hand making contact with Raja's side. The tiger, momentarily stunned, backed off, growling in frustration, but Gore didn't let up. Lily, still in shock from the entire situation, barely understood what was happening. She could see Gore's fierce protection, his resolve to keep her safe. Her eyes widened in awe and terror as the gorilla blocked the tiger's next charge with his chest. Standing tall and refusing to give an inch, Raja circled them, growling, clearly testing Gore's defenses. But Gore stood unwavering. He growled back, a low, powerful sound that sent a shiver through the air. With each passing moment, Gore made it clear that he would not allow Raja to harm Lily, not while he was there. At last, the tiger seemed to realize that he could not overpower Gore. With a final frustrated growl, Raja turned and retreated into the shadows of his enclosure, no longer interested in the confrontation. Gore didn't move, still guarding Lily until he was certain that the danger had passed. Lily, her breath ragged and her heart still racing, slowly stood up. She could hardly believe what had just happened. Her knees were weak, and her body trembled from the adrenaline coursing through her veins. But she was safe. She looked up at Gore, still standing between her and the tiger's retreating form. Gore, her voice trembled with disbelief. "Did you really save me?" Gore's eyes softened, and for a moment, he stood there silently, his chest rising and falling with each breath. He didn't answer her with words, but the look in his eyes said everything. He had protected her, not out of duty, but out of the bond they had built over time. The gorilla, who had once been so wild and distrustful, had come to see her as a friend worth protecting at all costs. Lily took a hesitant step toward him, her hand reaching out. She was still shaken, but now, more than ever, she understood the depth of their connection. She touched his arm gently, her fingers brushing against his thick fur. "Thank you, Gore," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you for saving me." Gore, as always, didn't need to speak. He simply stood there, letting her know that, in that moment, everything was going to be okay. He had done more than protect her. He had proven that love, trust, and friendship could overcome even the greatest dangers. And Lily, now more than ever, was sure that their bond was something truly special. The days had felt long since the incident with the tiger. Lily had been recovering, physically and emotionally, from the terrifying moment when she had found herself in the midst of a dangerous situation. She had a few bruises and scratches, but they would heal. It was the shock of the experience, the fear that had gripped her, that took longer to fade. Her mind often wandered back to the moment when Gore had saved her, charging through the zoo's barriers without hesitation, placing himself between her and the tiger with an unwavering commitment to protect her. The thought of that day left her with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. In the days following her recovery, Lily had been restless. She couldn't wait to return to the zoo. The bond she had with Gore had become more than just a simple connection. It had become something profound. Something that couldn't be measured by words alone. They had shared something that went beyond human-animal interaction. It was a deep, mutual respect and trust. It was friendship. Finally, after weeks of rest and reflection, Lily was cleared by her doctor to return to work at the zoo. She was both excited and anxious. The idea of seeing Gore again, after everything they had been through together, filled her heart with anticipation. She had missed him, not just as an animal she cared for, but as a companion, someone she had come to trust and, in many ways, rely on. It was a bright morning when she finally made her way to the zoo. Her steps light but filled with emotion. The air was warm, the sunlight dappling through the trees as she entered the familiar gates. She couldn't wait to see Gore again. The zoo had been a little emptier without him. The other animals were wonderful, but there was something about Gore, his presence, his strength, that had made the zoo feel like home for her. As she made her way to his enclosure, Lily could feel her heart beating faster in her chest. The familiar sights and sounds of the zoo were soothing, but all she could think about was Gore. What would he do when he saw her? Would he remember her? Would he be as happy to see her as she was to see him? When she reached the edge of Gore's enclosure, she stopped for a moment, taking a deep breath. She was still unsure of what to expect. Gore was a wild animal. After all, even though their bond had grown strong over time, he had saved her life. That memory was vivid in her mind. And now, she was here, ready to face him again. She stepped closer to the enclosure and looked inside. There he was. Gore was sitting in the far corner of his space, just as he always had. His back was to her. But as she stepped closer, something shifted. She didn't even have to call out to him. The moment he caught her scent, his head snapped around, and their eyes met. For a split second, time seemed to stop. Gore's large, brown eyes widened in recognition, and his expression shifted from curiosity to something deeper, something almost human in its warmth. A look of recognition passed over his face, and before Lily could even take another step, Gore was already moving toward her. It was incredible how fast he moved. With a burst of energy, he rushed toward her, his powerful limbs propelling him forward with surprising speed. Lily's breath caught in her throat. There was a moment of hesitation. Could this be real? Was it possible that Gore remembered her so clearly after everything that had happened? But any doubt she had quickly vanished when Gore reached her. Without warning, he wrapped his strong arms around her in a tight, almost protective embrace, lifting her off the ground in a way that made her heart skip a beat. His grip was gentle yet firm, as though he knew exactly how much pressure to apply. The world around them seemed to disappear as Lily felt the warmth of his embrace. She felt overwhelmed with emotion, relief, gratitude, and a profound sense of connection. Gore had not just saved her physically from danger, he had saved her emotionally as well. Their bond, forged through countless moments of trust and care, had brought him to this beautiful, heartfelt reunion. For a moment, Lily didn't know what to say. She simply let herself be held in Gore's arms, savoring the feeling of being together again. It wasn't just the physical closeness, it was the understanding between them. The shared history of everything they had been through together. The tiger incident had only solidified their connection. Gore had risked his life to protect her. And now, here they were, reunited, stronger than ever. Lily's eyes filled with tears as she hugged him back, her arms wrapped around his neck. She had never imagined that this kind of bond was possible between a human and an animal. It was more than friendship. It was a partnership, built on mutual respect and understanding. Gore had trusted her, and now, she had come to trust him just as deeply. "Thank you, Gore," she whispered softly, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for everything. I never imagined we would connect like this." Gore's grip loosened just enough for her to pull back slightly, but he still kept his large hands on her shoulders, as if unwilling to let her go just yet. His eyes softened, and there was a tenderness in his gaze that spoke volumes. It was as though he understood the weight of what she had said, and the depth of gratitude that filled her heart. "I missed you so much," Lily continued, wiping the tears from her eyes. "I didn't think I could miss someone this much. You've become such an important part of my life." Gore. For a long time, they just stood there, locked in that embrace. There were no words left to say, only feelings. Gore's presence was a silent reassurance that they had been through something incredible together and had emerged on the other side, stronger and more connected than ever before. After a few moments, Lily finally pulled back just enough to look up at him, her eyes still filled with tears but now glistening with a sense of peace. "I'm so lucky to have you, Gore," she said softly, her voice filled with love. "You're not just my charge. You're my friend, my family." Gore responded by gently reaching out and touching her face with his large, calloused fingers, almost as if to confirm that everything was okay. It was a quiet, tender gesture, one that showed how far they had come. From a wild animal who was once scared and mistrustful of humans to a gentle, caring companion who had saved her life. Gore had proven that the bond between them was nothing short of extraordinary. Lily held his gaze for a moment, feeling a deep sense of peace wash over her. She had always known she was meant to work with animals, but she had never expected this kind of connection. It was a connection built on trust, patience, and love, one that would last a lifetime. And as she stood there, holding Gore close, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. They had already overcome so much. And now, their friendship was unbreakable. The bond between Lily and Gore was something extraordinary, a rare, powerful connection that transcended the boundaries of language, species, and experience. As they stood together, surrounded by the beauty of the zoo, the world around them seemed to disappear. All that mattered was the quiet, unwavering trust that had been built between them over time. It was a bond forged not through words, but through the silent language of love, care, and mutual respect. When Lily first arrived at the zoo, Gore was a wild, fearful animal. He had suffered the horrors of poaching, and his heart and mind bore the scars of his painful past. He didn't trust humans, and the world had taught him that people could be cruel. But Lily, with her kindness and patience, had made a promise to herself to show him a different side of humanity, one that was filled with compassion, understanding, and love. She didn't rush him, she didn't try to force a connection. Instead, she gave him the time and space he needed, patiently waiting for him to come to her. She brought him food, spoke softly to him, and even sang songs to him, hoping to soothe the pain that lingered in his heart. And slowly, over time, something remarkable began to happen. Gore started to trust her. Little by little, he allowed her into his world. His eyes softened when he saw her, and his body language changed. The wild, untamed gorilla that had once been wary of human touch was now responding to her in ways he had never done before. But their connection wasn't just about food or care. It was about something deeper, a mutual understanding that was beyond words. Lily didn't need to say, "I love you," for Gore to understand the depth of her feelings. And Gore didn't need to speak to express his gratitude and affection. Their bond was felt in the quiet moments. The moments when their hearts communicated without saying a word. The breakthrough came one fateful day when Gore saved Lily's life. She had fallen into a dangerous area of the zoo, and a tiger had come dangerously close to attacking her. It was Gore who rushed to her aid, without hesitation, charging through the barriers of his enclosure to place himself between Lily and the tiger. It was a powerful act of protection, one that spoke volumes about the love and loyalty that had been built between them. In that moment, Lily realized just how far their relationship had come. Gore wasn't just a gorilla she cared for, he had become her protector, her companion, and her friend, and in return, she had become his. Their bond was no longer a one-sided act of care, it had transformed into a true friendship. A partnership built on trust, love, and understanding. They had both healed together, in ways they could never have anticipated. Gore had learned to trust again, and Lily had learned the true meaning of unconditional love. Now, standing beside him, feeling his warmth and presence, Lily could hardly believe how far they had come. She had been through so much. But with Gore by her side, everything seemed possible. He had shown her the true power of connection, the kind of connection that goes beyond the surface, beyond the barriers of language, and into the very core of the heart. Looking at Gore, her heart filled with love and gratitude, Lily whispered softly, as though speaking directly to his soul, "Love doesn't need words. It's something you feel, something you experience." And it was true. Their love didn't need to be verbalized. It didn't need to be explained or justified. It was simply there, woven into every moment they spent together. Love had transcended the need for language, for communication in the traditional sense. The way Gore looked at her, the way he protected her, the way he sought her out for companionship, all of these things spoke louder than any words ever could. And in return, Lily had given him something equally valuable: her unwavering care, her patience, and her deep, unconditional love. This powerful connection between human and animal is one that many people never fully understand. We often think of animals as beings that can only serve us or be objects of affection. But the truth is that animals are capable of deep emotional bonds, just as humans are. Gore had been a victim of cruelty and fear. But with time, he had learned to open his heart again. He had learned to trust in someone who showed him love, not because they needed something from him, but because they cared deeply about him. This was a lesson that Lily had learned as well: that love is not something that can be forced. It is something that must be earned, nurtured, and cultivated over time. In their quiet moments together, Lily realized that their connection wasn't just a lesson for her, it was a message for the world. The bond between her and Gore was a testament to the power of love and patience. It was proof that, no matter how different we may seem, the core of our beings is the same. Whether human or animal, we all seek connection, affection, and understanding. We all need love to survive and thrive, to heal from the wounds of the past and to move forward into a brighter future. Their relationship wasn't just about Gore and Lily, it was about something larger. It was a reminder to all who witnessed their bond that love knows no boundaries. It transcends species, culture, and language. It doesn't require spoken words to be felt, and it doesn't need to be defined by anything other than the simple, quiet presence of two beings who care for each other. As Lily stood there, her hand gently resting on Gore's large arm, she knew that this was only the beginning of their journey together. There would be more challenges ahead, more hurdles to overcome, but no matter what came their way, they would face it together. They had built something unbreakable, something that would last a lifetime. And as the sun set behind them, casting a warm golden glow over the zoo, Lily and Gore stood side by side, in perfect silence. It was in this silence, in the stillness of their bond, that they found the truest expression of love, the love that didn't need words, because it was felt deeply in their hearts. In the end, the most powerful message they shared was simple: love is the bridge that connects all beings. It is the universal language that unites us all, no matter who we are or where we come from. And when we open our hearts to it, we find that the connections we make are the most meaningful and transformative of all.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.